No one noticed the Chinese guest until the gardener spoke fluent Mandarin. David Miller had watched for the 10th time that morning as the Asian man walked frantically through the lobby of the Plaza Hotel. The guest carried a worn leather suitcase and tried to communicate with every staff member, but no one could understand what he was saying. That was when David decided to approach him. After 20 years working as a gardener at this 5-star hotel, he had never seen a guest so distressed. The man seemed to be searching for something or someone with an urgency that tugged at the heart. "Are you all right, sir?" David asked in Mandarin, surprising not only the guest, but every staff member passing by. The man's eyes filled with tears of relief. Finally, someone understood him. "My name is Wei Jiang," he said, still in disbelief. "I've been searching for someone for 25 years, a woman who worked at this hotel. Her name was Lin Chen." David felt his heart race. That name wasn't unfamiliar, but he couldn't recall where he knew it from. There was something familiar about the story Wei Jiang was beginning to tell. "I worked here in the 90s, Wei continued in Mandarin. "She was a cook, a beautiful woman with a sweet smile. We promised to marry, but my family forced me to return to China. When I finally came back, she had disappeared." The hotel manager, Richard Johnson, approached irritably when he saw a mere gardener speaking to a guest in a foreign language. "David, get back to work, sir. Do you need anything?" he asked in English, but Wei only shook his head. "I'll only speak with him," Wei said, pointing at David. "He understands me." Richard rolled his eyes, clearly annoyed, but he knew he couldn't disrespect a guest. David led Wei to the garden where he tended the plants, away from the prying eyes of the other staff. "Tell me more about Lin Chen," David asked, as he watered the red roses that adorned the hotel's exterior. Wei opened the old suitcase and pulled out a yellowed photograph. In it, a young Chinese woman, about 25, smiled beside a man David recognized as Wei himself, though much younger. This photo was taken here at the hotel in 1998. She worked the night shift in the kitchen. I was staying here on business and we met in the elevator. It was love at first sight. David examined the photo carefully. There was something about the woman's face that stirred a strange feeling in his chest, like a distant memory trying to surface. "Did she have any family here in the United States?" David asked. "Not that I knew. She told me she came from China alone, searching for a better life. She worked to save money and bring her mother here too." Wei carefully put the photo away and pulled out a sealed envelope from the suitcase. Inside this envelope are very important documents. After I returned to China, I built a business empire. Everything I achieved was with the hope of coming back for her. I never married. I never loved another woman. Wei's voice was heavy with emotion. David could feel the pain of a man who had spent decades searching for his great love. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. "Why did you only return now?" David asked, genuinely curious. Wei took a deep breath before answering. "My family had traditional business ties in China. When they found out about my relationship with Lin Chen, they forbade me from returning to the United States. They said if I disobeyed, I'd lose everything. I was young and didn't have the courage to defy them." "But you came back." "Yes, after 20 years of fighting. I managed to make our company even bigger and bought out all the family members' shares. Now I own everything and can do whatever I want. I came back to find her." David continued watering the plants, but his mind was elsewhere. The name Lin Chen echoed in his head like a distant bell. Why did that name feel so familiar? "David, do you know anyone who might have information about her?" Wei pleaded. "Let me talk to some of the older staff. Ms. Margaret has worked at the front desk for 30 years. If anyone remembers Lin Chen, it's her." The two walked back to the main lobby. Ms. Margaret Wilson, a 62-year-old woman, was organizing papers behind the reception counter when David approached. "Ms. Margaret, this gentleman is looking for information about an employee who worked at the hotel in the 90s. Lin Chen, Chinese, worked in the kitchen." Ms. Margaret's eyes lit up with recognition. "Lin Chen. Of course I remember her. A sweet girl, very hard-working. She got pregnant and had to leave the job. I never saw her again after that." Wei gripped David's arm tightly. Pregnant? She had a child? Yes, a boy. She was very worried because the father had traveled and she couldn't reach him anymore. She said he'd promised to return, but he never did. Wei's legs trembled. David had to hold him up to keep him from falling. My son? I had a son with her. Ms. Margaret looked from Wei to David, sensing the tension. She lived in a boarding house near the Upper East Side. After the baby was born, she moved. The owner might know where she went. Wei was in shock. David helped him sit in one of the lobby chairs. Take a deep breath, David said in Mandarin. We'll find the answers you're looking for. 25 years. My son must be 25 now, Wei murmured, his eyes filled with tears. Richard, the manager, watched from a distance. He didn't understand what was happening, but could tell it was something important. He approached again. Is there a problem I can help with? David translated the question for Wei, who just shook his head. I just need time, Wei said through David. Well, sir, the suite is reserved for as long as you need, Richard replied, trying to be helpful. That afternoon, David finished his shift early and went with Wei to the boarding house Ms. Margaret had mentioned. The place had changed owners twice since the 90s, but they managed to track down Ms. Dorothy, the former owner, who now lived in a modest house in Greenwich Village. Miss Dorothy, a 75-year-old woman, welcomed the two men into her small but cozy living room. When David explained the reason for their visit, she grew visibly emotional. Lin Chen, how I miss that girl. She suffered so much when you didn't come back, Ms. Dorothy said, looking straight at Wei, who didn't understand English but could feel the emotion in her voice. David translated each word, watching Wei grow more desperate with every revelation. She waited for you until she couldn't anymore. The baby was born, and she had to work to support him. She got a job with a wealthy family here in New York as a nanny. A wealthy family? David asked. Yes, the Thompsons. They had a mansion in Bel Air. Lin Chen worked there for many years. The boy practically grew up with their children. Wei listened to the translation with a racing heart. And then? What happened to them? Ms. Dorothy sighed sadly. Lin Chen fell ill. It was sudden, a heart problem. She was in the hospital when she last came to me. She was worried about the boy, saying if anything happened to her, he'd be alone in the world. Wei couldn't finish the question. She passed away 5 years ago, said Miss Dorothy delicately, but the boy was already grown. He must be about 25 now. He was a hard-working young man, just like his mother. Zhang broke down in tears. David placed a hand on his shoulder, offering what comfort he could. I'm so sorry, David said in Mandarin. I was too late, Zhang sobbed. 5 years too late. But your son could still be alive. We can look for him. Ms. Dorothy continued. The boy always asked about his father. Lin Chen told him stories about you, said you'd come back one day. She kept all the memories from the time you spent together. What kind of memories? David asked. Photos, letters, little gifts. Lin Chen always said that when the boy's father returned, she'd show him everything. Zhang composed himself slightly. Where are those things now? I'm not sure. When Lin Chen fell ill, the boy had to sell almost everything to pay for the hospital. But maybe he kept something important. David and Zhang left Ms. Dorothy's house with more questions than answers. On their way back to the hotel, Zhang was silent, lost in thought. David, do you have children? Zhang suddenly asked. No, I never married, David replied. I've always been focused on work. I've missed 25 years of my son's life. 25 years I'll never get back. But you can have the next 25 with him, David comforted. When they arrived at the hotel, Richard was waiting at the front desk with a puzzled expression. David, I need to speak with you privately, the manager said. David asked Zhang to wait and followed Richard to his office. What's going on? Is this guest someone important? He's looking for someone, Mr. Richard. It's a very delicate personal matter. Well, whatever it is, the hotel board found out we have a Chinese businessman staying here. They want us to provide every possible assistance. David nodded and went back to Zhang. That night, Zhang couldn't sleep. He stood on the balcony of his suite, gazing at the Upper East Side shoreline, thinking of Lin Chen, and the son he never knew. David, who lived in a modest apartment in Chelsea, also stayed awake, intrigued by the whole story. The next day, David decided to use his connections to try and locate Lin Chen's son. He knew many people who worked in different hotels and restaurants across the city. If the young man was still in New York, someone might know him. He started with the Thompson family, where Lin Chen had worked for so many years. He got the address through a friend who worked at a domestic staffing agency. The mansion in Bel Air was imposing. David felt small before the electronic gate and security cameras. When he rang the bell, a woman's voice answered, "How can I help you?" "Good afternoon. My name is David Miller. I'm looking for information about an employee who worked here years ago, Lin Chen." There was a pause before the response. "Wait a moment." A few minutes later, an elegant woman in her 50s opened the gate. It was Jennifer Thompson, the lady of the house. "Lin Chen. Our dear Lin. Please come in." David was led into a luxurious room. Jennifer served coffee and sat across from him. Lin Chen was practically family for over 15 years, an extraordinary woman. She cared for my children as if they were her own. "And her son?" David asked. "David." Jennifer's face darkened. "Nathan, poor boy. When Lin Chen fell ill, he did everything to take care of her. Sold even the few valuable things they had to pay for medicine." "Nathan?" "Yes, that's the name Lin Chen chose for him. She said it was a strong American name, that it would bring the boy luck." David made a mental note of all the information. "Do you know where he is now?" he asked. "After Lin Chen left, I offered to help Nathan, but he was too proud. He said he could manage on his own. The last I heard, he was working as a gardener at a hotel in the Upper East Side." David's heart skipped a beat. A hotel in the Upper East Side? Yes, he always loved plants. Lin Chen used to say she taught the boy about the flowers and trees in China. She said his father adored gardens. David left Jennifer's house with his mind in a whirl. Could it be that Cheng's son was working so close to him? How many Chinese or mixed-race gardeners could there be in Upper East Side hotels? Back at the Plaza Hotel, David looked for Cheng, who was in the garden observing the plants. "I found out your son's name," David said in Mandarin. "His name is Nathan." Cheng smiled for the first time since arriving at the hotel. "Nathan. That's a beautiful name. Did you learn anything else?" "He works as a gardener at a hotel here in the Upper East Side." "A gardener?" Cheng seemed surprised. Just like you what?" "When I was a child in China, I loved tending my grandfather's garden. I dreamed of having my own garden someday." David felt a chill run down his spine. The coincidences were piling up in an unsettling way. "Cheng, tell me more about your childhood." "Why?" "Just tell me, please." Cheng sat on a bench near the roses and began to speak. "I grew up in a small town near Shanghai. My mother left when I was very young, and my grandfather raised me. He had a wonderful garden, full of orchids and bamboo. I spent my entire childhood learning about plants from him." David had gone pale. This couldn't all be a coincidence. "And how did you learn to speak English?" "English? I don't speak English," Cheng replied, confused. "But you're speaking English with me right now," David said, this time in English. Cheng stopped talking and stared at David. I'm speaking English? But I don't know English." "And I don't know Mandarin," David whispered. The two men looked at each other in silence, trying to process what was happening. How had they been communicating perfectly for 2 days if neither knew the other's language? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now back to the story. "This is impossible," Chung murmured. "David! David!" Ms. Margaret's voice echoed through the garden. "Come quickly. There's a young man at the front desk asking about a Chinese guest." David and Cheng ran to the lobby. At the reception stood a young man around 25, tall with features that blended Asian and American traits. He wore a green gardener's uniform, identical to David's. "This young man works at the Waldorf Astoria and said he heard there was a Chinese guest staying here looking for someone," Ms. Margaret explained. David glanced at Chang, who stood frozen, staring at the young man. There was no doubt. Those were Lin Chen's eyes from the photo. "What's your name?" David asked the young man. "Nathan Cheng," he replied. "My mother told me my father was Chinese, and that one day he might come back looking for us. When I heard there was a Chinese businessman at the hotel asking about her, I thought..." Cheng could no longer hold back. Tears streamed down his face as he slowly approached the son he had searched for over 25 years. "Nathan, my son," Cheng said in English, unaware he was speaking the language he claimed not to know. "Father," Nathan's voice trembled. "Yes, my son, it's me." The embrace between father and son moved all the hotel staff who witnessed the scene. Ms. Margaret wept openly. Richard completely forgot his professional demeanor, and even the guests passing through the lobby stopped to witness that unique moment. David watched the scene with a smile on his face, but also with a strange feeling in his chest. There was something more to that story he still didn't understand. "Nathan, tell me about your mother," Wei asked, still embracing his son. "She raised me alone, but she always spoke about you. She said you were a good man, that you loved gardens like she did. She taught me everything she knew about plants." "And what else did she say about me?" "That you promised to come back for her. That one day we'd be a real family. She kept a letter you wrote to her before you left." Wei grew even more emotional. "She kept the letter? Until the very end. I have it with me." Nathan pulled a yellowed envelope from his pocket. Wei immediately recognized his own handwriting. "My dearest Lin Chen." Wei began reading aloud. "I promise I'll return as soon as I resolve the issues with my family. Wait for me. One day we'll have our own home, with a garden full of the flowers you love so much. I'll love you forever, Wei Jiang." She waited, Dad. She waited until her last day. Wei closed his eyes, feeling the weight of 25 years of separation. "Forgive me, my son. Forgive me for taking so long." "There's nothing to forgive. You're here now." David continued watching the family reunion, but something bothered him. Why had he and Wei been able to communicate so perfectly? And why did he feel like he knew Nathan from somewhere? "Nathan," David called. "How long have you worked at the Waldorf Astoria?" "About 3 years. Before that, I worked at other hotels in the city. And before that, I tended a family's garden in Bel Air, the Thompsons. Everything fell into place." David had found the connection, but one mystery remained. How had he and Wei communicated? "Wei," David said, "I need to ask you a strange question." "Anything." "Do you dream in English?" Wei seemed confused by the question. "Actually, yes. Ever since I arrived in the United States, I've dreamed in English, and I wake up feeling like I understand everything." "And you, Nathan," David asked, "have you ever dreamed in Mandarin?" "Always. Since I was a child, my mother said it was my connection to my father." David began to understand. There was an emotional bond so strong between these three people that it transcended language barriers. "Wei, open the envelope you brought from China," David requested. Wei hesitated, but retrieved the documents from his bag. They were deeds to a vast property in Shanghai, along with bank statements showing a considerable fortune. "All of this is yours, Nathan," Wei said. "I built this empire thinking of you and your mother." "Dad, I don't need money. I just need you." "But there's more," Wei continued. "I bought land in China where I plan to build a home for our family. There's space for the grandest garden you could imagine." Nathan smiled, but shook his head. "My life is here in the United States, Dad. It's where I was born, where I grew up. It's my home." Wei understood his son's feelings. "Then we'll build our garden here." "What do you mean?" "I'll invest in the United States, start a business here, stay close to you." David smiled, seeing the joy on father and son's faces, but Wei had one last surprise. "David," Wei said, "you changed my life. If it weren't for you, I'd never have found my son." "I just did my job," David replied modestly. "No, it was much more than that. And I want to repay you. Wei pulled another document from his bag. I'm offering you a partnership. Together, we can create the greatest landscaping company in New York City. You know American plants, I know Chinese techniques. Nathan knows both cultures. David was speechless. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Nathan smiled. It would be amazing to work together. At that moment, Richard approached the group with a serious expression. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone at the front desk asking for Mr. Zhang. Everyone headed to the counter, where an elegant woman in her 60s was waiting. She wore expensive clothes and carried an authoritative air. Wei Zhang, the woman said in Mandarin. Finally, I've found you. Zhang's face paled. Min Yang, what are you doing here? David noticed the tension and translated for Nathan. Who is she, Dad? She's my cousin, from the family that stopped me from returning to the United States years ago. Min continued speaking in Mandarin, her tone accusatory. David was surprised to understand every word, as was Nathan. You disappeared from China without explanation. The family is worried, Min said. I don't owe anyone an explanation, Zhang replied firmly. I'm free to do as I please. Free? You have responsibilities in China, businesses that depend on you. The businesses are well managed. I can oversee them from anywhere in the world. Min glanced around and noticed Nathan watching the exchange. Who is this young man? My son, Zhang said proudly. Your son, but you never married. Not to someone you would approve of. Min's expression hardened. Zhang, you must come back with me. The family has arranged a marriage for you. It's time you had a proper family. I already have a family, Zhang said, placing his arm around Nathan's shoulders. A mixed-race child doesn't count as family, Min said disdainfully. Nathan stepped forward, clearly offended, but Zhang stopped him from speaking. Min Yang, you will leave this hotel now and never speak of my son that way again, Zhang said, in a tone David had never heard before. Or what? Or I withdraw all investments from the family business and you lose everything. Remember, I own it all now. Min realized Zhang was serious. You'll regret this decision. The only thing I regret is taking 25 years to make it. Min stormed out of the hotel angrily, but Zhang seemed liberated. For the first time in decades, he had stood up to his family and chosen his own path. Dad, are you sure you want to stay in the United States? Nathan asked, concerned. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, in the following days, Zhang, Nathan and David worked together to shape the new business. Zhang rented an office in Soho and began importing specialized equipment and plants from China. Nathan left his job at the Waldorf Astoria and David resigned from the Plaza Hotel. Richard wasn't happy about David's departure, but understood it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the gardener. You've always been the best employee we've had, Richard said on David's last day. The hotel's doors will always be open for you. The company World Gardens officially launched 3 months later with a celebration on the office terrace in Soho. Ms. Margaret, Jennifer Thompson, Ms. Dorothy, and many other friends David and Nathan had made over the years were there. Zhang gave an emotional speech about second chances and how love can overcome any obstacle. Nathan spoke about the importance of knowing one's roots while forging one's own identity. David, more reserved, thanked everyone for letting him be part of such an incredible story. The company quickly became a success. The combination of Wei's Eastern techniques, David's knowledge of American plants, and Nathan's youthful creativity resulted in unique projects that caught the attention of the entire city. 6 months after opening, they received an invitation to design the landscaping for a new 5-star hotel to be built in Bel Air. It was the ultimate recognition of the work they were developing. During the project at the new hotel, Wei and Nathan found time to talk about all they had lost and all that still lay ahead. Dad, sometimes I wonder how different things would be if you had stayed in the United States when I was born, Nathan said as they planted royal palms at the hotel entrance. I think about that too, son. But maybe I needed to go through everything I did to become the man I am today, a man strong enough to stand up to my family and choose my own life. And Mom, have you forgiven her for not trying to find you? Wei stopped what he was doing and looked at his son. Your mother had no way of reaching me. My family intercepted all her letters. When I found out, it was one of the reasons I decided to break free from their control. How did you find out? Min Yang, my cousin, let it slip during an argument. She said it had been necessary to protect the family from Lin Chen's desperate attempts to contact me. Nathan felt a mix of anger and sadness. They stole 25 years from our family. Yes, but they won't steal the next 25. David approached them carrying orchid seedlings. These arrived today from China, he said. They're from the region where Wei grew up. They're beautiful, Nathan remarked. Where should we plant them? I thought of creating a special garden, Wei said. A memory garden for your mother. The idea moved Nathan deeply. She would have been so happy to know we found each other. She knew, David said suddenly. Somehow, she knew. The two looked at him curiously. Why do you say that? Wei asked. Because she taught Nathan everything about gardening. Because she kept his memories alive. Because she prepared him for this reunion without even realizing it. Nathan smiled, recognizing the truth in those words. She always said plants have memory, that when we care for them with love, they hold on to that feeling and pass it on to others. Maybe that's why we connected so well from the very first day, Wei reflected. Lin Chen's love built a bridge between us. By the end of the day, the three men sat in the garden they had created, watching the sunset over Bel Air. Wei held the faded photo of Lin Chen. Nathan read the letter his father had written so many years ago, and David admired the orchids that had traveled across the world to bloom in the United States. You know what amazes me most about this whole story, David said. What? Wei and Nathan asked together. That Lin Chen never stopped believing you'd find each other. Even when she was sick, even when things were hard, she kept hope alive. How do you know that? Nathan asked. Because she taught you to hold on to that hope too. And it was that hope that led you to the Plaza Hotel that day. Wei nodded in understanding. And the same hope brought me back to the United States after all these years. And made me learn Mandarin without knowing how, David added, still puzzled by the mystery. Maybe some connections are stronger than logic, Nathan mused. A year after their first meeting at the hotel, the lives of the three men had completely changed. Their company, World Gardens, became a leading name in landscaping in New York City, with projects in hotels, homes, and public spaces across the city. Zhang adapted perfectly to American life. He formally learned English, started taking samba classes, and fell in love with the local food. He bought an apartment in Soho with an ocean view, where he could see the same sea that Lin Chen gazed at when thinking of him. Nathan flourished in the family business. His creativity and knowledge of both cultures resulted in unique projects that harmoniously blended Eastern and tropical elements. Additionally, he began teaching landscaping classes for underprivileged youth, instructing them not just about plants, but also about hope and perseverance. David discovered a natural talent for management. He became an equal partner in the company and took charge of the financial and logistical aspects of the business. For the first time in his life, he felt he was exactly where he belonged. One March morning, Zhang arrived at the office with a mysterious expression. I have a surprise for you both, he said. Nathan and David stopped what they were doing to listen. I received a very interesting proposal yesterday. What kind of proposal? Asked David. The New York State government wants to create a themed botanical garden in the city, a space that represents the union of different cultures through plants. Nathan was thrilled. And they want us to design it? Not just design it, they want us to manage the space permanently. David could hardly believe it. So, it would be like having our own botanical garden. Exactly. And do you know what the garden will be called? Zhang paused dramatically. The Lin Chen Botanical Garden. Tears began to stream down Nathan's face. My mother will have a garden named after her. More than that, it will be a garden where her love story will be told forever, where other separated families can find inspiration to never give up on reuniting. David was moved by the idea. When do we start? I already have. Zhang smiled. I accepted the proposal yesterday. The three men embraced, knowing they were about to create something truly special. The Lin Chen Botanical Garden project took 2 years to complete. During that time, Zhang, Nathan, and David worked tirelessly to create not just a beautiful space, but a place that told stories. The garden was divided into different sections, each representing a part of the world. There was the Chinese garden with bamboo, cherry blossoms, and wooden bridges, the American garden, lush with tropical colors and shapes, and at the center, the memory garden, where orchids planted in honor of Lin Chen grew alongside red roses like the ones David once tended at the hotel. At the inauguration, hundreds of people attended. Ms. Margaret, now retired from the hotel, cut the ribbon alongside Zhang. Jennifer Thompson brought her entire family to see the garden. Ms. Dorothy, despite her age-related limitations, insisted on being there. The city's mayor gave a speech about the importance of cultural diversity and how love can overcome any barrier. But the most emotional moment came when Nathan spoke about his mother. Lin Chen never imagined her love story would inspire so many people, he said, his voice trembling. She was a simple woman who worked hard and believed in the power of true love. This garden is proof that she was right. Zhang added, Lin Chen taught me that love has no borders, no language, no color. Love is universal, like plants that grow anywhere they find care and affection. David concluded, and she taught me that sometimes we are instruments of fate, bringing together people who need to find each other, that our purpose in life can be greater than we imagine. In the months after the botanical garden opened, something magical began to happen. People from different nationalities began visiting the space, not just to admire the plants, but to share their own stories of love and separation. An elderly Argentine couple reunited after 50 years, inspired by the story of Wei and Lin Chen. A Japanese woman found the brother she had lost during World War II. Two childhood friends who had moved to different countries discovered they lived just 2 hours apart. The Lin Chen Botanical Garden became known as the Garden of Reunions, and people from all over the world came to New York City specifically to visit it. Wei, Nathan, and David took turns telling the original story to visitors. Each had their own version, but all touched the hearts of those who listened. One December afternoon, 2 years after the garden's opening, the three men were tending to the orchids when Wei asked a question he had long wanted to. David, you never told me why you never married. David stopped watering the plants and sighed. It's a long story. We have time, said Nathan, joining the conversation. When I was young, I fell in love with a girl named Sarah. We were neighbors, grew up together. We planned to marry after I got a better job. And what happened? Asked Wei. Her family decided to move to England. They said she'd have more opportunities there. Sarah promised she'd come back, but she never returned, Nathan finished. No, I got a few letters at first, then nothing. I decided I'd wait for her, that I wouldn't marry anyone else. Wei and Nathan exchanged glances, recognizing the similarity to their own story. How many years has it been? Asked Wei. 32. And you never tried to find her? How? I didn't have money to travel, didn't know exactly where she was in England. Nathan had an idea. David, we know how to find people. Why don't we look for Sarah? You'd do that? Of course, said Wei. You helped us find each other. Now it's our turn to help you. And so began a new search. This time Wei used his international contacts to locate Sarah in England. It took just 3 weeks to discover she lived in London, was widowed, and had 2 grown children. Even more surprising, she had never forgotten David. She asked if you still worked as a gardener, Wei said after speaking with Sarah on the phone. What did you tell her? That you became the owner of the largest landscaping company in New York City. David grew nervous at the thought of seeing Sarah after so many years. What if she doesn't want to see me? What if I disappoint her? What if she's been waiting for you for 32 years, just like Lin waited for me? Wei countered. Nathan supported his father. David, you have to try. If it doesn't work out, at least you'll know you tried. A week later, David was at JFK Airport, preparing to board a flight to London. Wei and Nathan accompanied him to the gate. "Thank you for everything," David said, emotional. "We're the ones who should thank you," Wei replied. "You taught us that sometimes families form in unexpected ways, and that love has the power to change lives," Nathan added. David boarded the plane, his heart equally full of hope and fear. In London, Sarah waited for him at the airport. At 58, she was still the beautiful woman David had fallen for in his youth. The reunion was shy at first, but soon familiarity took over their conversation. During his week in England, David learned Sarah had tried to return to the United States several times, but something always stopped her. First, her young children, then her sick husband, then responsibilities with her grandchildren. "I never forgot you, David," she said one afternoon as they walked through the streets of London. "I always wondered what would have happened if I had stayed in the United States. And now? What would you like to happen now?" Sarah smiled. "I'd like to see that magical garden where you work. I'd like to visit New York City again. I'd like to have a second chance." David returned to the United States with Sarah. When they arrived at the airport, Wei and Nathan were waiting for them with a bouquet of white orchids. "Welcome to the United States, Sarah," Wei said in perfect English. "Thank you so much. David told me your whole story. It's beautiful to see a family reunited." "Now we're two families reunited," Nathan said with a smile. Sarah was enchanted by the Lin Chen Botanical Garden. She spent hours talking with Wei about the love story that had created this place. She was moved to learn that Lin Chen had waited for Wei until the end of her days. "She was braver than me," Sarah confessed. "I gave up too soon." "But you're here now," Wei comforted her. "That's what matters." 6 months later, David and Sarah married in a simple ceremony at the botanical garden itself. Wei was the best man, and Nathan was the witness. Miss Margaret organized the celebration, Jennifer Thompson provided the flowers, and Miss Dorothy, despite her limitations, insisted on being there. During the ceremony, the priest spoke about second chances and how true love always finds a way. Wei held a photo of Lin Chen and whispered, "Thank you for teaching me never to give up." After the wedding, Sarah joined World Gardens as an international project consultant. Her experience in England helped the company expand to other countries. 2 years later, Wei received an unexpected call from Shanghai. It was Min Yang, his cousin, who had completely changed her attitude. "Wei, I need to talk to you," she said in Mandarin. "What do you want, Min?" "To ask for forgiveness, and to tell you a truth you need to know." Wei was intrigued. "What truth?" "About Lin Chen, about the letters she sent." Wei's heart raced. "What about the letters?" "We didn't just intercept her letters to you. We also intercepted your letters to her." Wei was silent for a long moment. "How many letters did I write?" "Dozens. For years. You never stopped trying to reach her. And where are those letters now?" "I kept them. I've always regretted what we did. If you want, I can send them to the United States." Wei talked to Nathan about Min's call. His son was outraged to learn that his father had tried to contact Lin Chen all those years. "She never knew you hadn't forgotten her," Nathan said, tears in his eyes. "But I want you to know," Wei replied. "I want you to read those letters and understand that not a single day passed without me thinking of both of you." When the letters arrived in the United States, Nathan spent an entire week reading each one. They were messages of love, longing, and hope. Some told of the businesses Wei was building, others of the gardens he wanted to create for Lin Chen. All ended with the promise that he would return. "Dad, my mother would have been so happy to know this," Nathan said after finishing the letters. "I wish she had known." "Maybe she does," Nathan said, looking at the orchids growing in the garden. "Plants have memory, remember?" Wei smiled and hugged his son. "You're so much like her, you know that. Everyone says that, but I hope I'm like you too." "You are. You have my determination and her generous heart." That evening, Wei, Nathan, David, and Sarah gathered in the botanical garden for a special ceremony. Wei read aloud some of the letters he had written to Lin Chen, translating them into English. Later, they burned the letters in a small fire, believing the smoke would carry the words to where Lin Chen could hear them. "Now she knows," said Nathan, watching the smoke rise toward the stars. "Yes, now she knows," agreed Wei. 3 years later, the Lin Chen Botanical Garden received a very special visit. A delegation from China came to the United States to see the project that had become famous worldwide. Among the visitors was an elderly man who introduced himself as a botany professor from Shanghai University. Upon hearing Wei and Lin Chen's story, he asked to speak privately with Wei. "My name is Cheng Wu," he said in Mandarin. "I knew Lin Chen in China before she came to the United States." Wei was surprised. "You knew her?" "She was my student, a brilliant young woman, passionate about plants. She told me about you before she traveled." "What did she say?" "That she had found the love of her life in the United States, that you were a good man who loved gardens as much as she did. She wanted to learn everything about American plants to impress you when you married." Wei could hardly believe what he was hearing. She studied American plants for months. She wanted to be the best gardener possible, to help you fulfill your dream of having a grand garden. "And how did you hear our story?" The tale of the Lin Chen Botanical Garden reached China. When I realized the Wei Jiang in the story was you, I decided to come in person to share what I knew. Professor Cheng Wu spent a week in the United States, telling Wei stories about the young Lin Chen he had never heard before. Nathan recorded all their conversations, creating a precious archive of memories about his mother. "Your mother was special from a very young age," the professor told Nathan. "She had a natural wisdom about plants and an incredible intuition about people." "She taught me so much about plants," said Nathan, "but also about patience and hope. She always said plants teach us about life, that some seeds need to wait a long time to sprout, but when they do, they grow into the strongest trees." Wei understood the deeper meaning of those words. "We were those seeds that waited so long to sprout. And look at the strong tree they grew into," said the professor, gesturing to the garden around them. On the last day of Professor Cheng Wu's visit, he made a special request. "I'd like to plant a tree in honor of Lin Chen, a tree brought directly from China, from the city where she was born." Wei, Nathan, David, and Sarah were moved by the idea. "What kind of tree?" asked Nathan. "A cherry blossom. Lin Chen loved cherry blossoms. She said they represented the beauty of life and the importance of cherishing every moment." The cherry tree was planted at the center of the memory garden, surrounded by the orchids already growing there. Professor Cheng Wu said a prayer in Mandarin, asking Lin Chen to bless the place and all the families who would gather there. When the cherry tree bloomed the following year, it was a breathtaking sight. The delicate pink flowers formed a magical canopy over the orchids, and visitors to the garden would spend hours admiring the perfect union of two cultures. Wei began meditating every morning beneath the cherry tree, speaking silently to Lin Chen about Nathan, the grandchildren he hoped to have someday, and the gardens he still wanted to create. Nathan started teaching botany classes for children in the garden, sharing not just knowledge of plants, but also lessons about different cultures and the importance of tolerance and love. David and Sarah settled permanently in the United States, dividing their time between their business and the botanical garden. Sarah created an exchange program for gardeners from the United States and England, strengthening ties between the two countries. On an autumn afternoon, 5 years after the garden's opening, Jiang received a call that would once again change his life. "Dad, I need to tell you something," said Nathan, visibly nervous. "What is it, son?" "Jessica is pregnant." Jiang took a few seconds to process the news. Jessica had been Nathan's girlfriend for 2 years, a landscape architect who had joined the company's team. "I'm going to be a grandfather?" Jiang asked, his voice trembling. "Yes, Dad. You're going to be a grandfather." Jiang hugged his son with all his strength. "Lin Chen would have been so happy," he whispered. "She'll meet her grandchild," Nathan said, "just like she met you, even without being physically here." 9 months later, Emily Chen Miller Jiang was born, a little girl whose name carried the 3 cultures united in that unlikely family. Emily's christening took place at the Lin Chen Botanical Garden, beneath the cherry tree Professor Cheng Wu had planted. Hundreds of people attended, including many families who had reunited, inspired by the original story. Jiang held his granddaughter in his arms as Nathan read a letter he had written to Lin Chen. "Mom, I wish you could meet your granddaughter Emily. She has your curious eyes and her father's smile. I know you're here with us, watching over our family as you always did. The ceremony was moving, but the most touching moment came when Emily, just 2 months old, reached her tiny hand toward the cherry blossoms, as if recognizing something familiar in those pink petals. She knows, Zhang murmured. Somehow, she knows. The end of the story. Now tell us what you thought of this story of reunion and resilience. Do you believe true love always finds a way? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. If this story touched your heart as it did ours, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other heartfelt stories we've prepared for you.